RemanX here, and we're going to go through this Bionic Avenger team because I'm pretty excited by this team. And again, I think it was really hinging on Hulkbuster's appearance in the game, and I am very, very glad he finally appeared. And now 3.4 is relatively easy, and we're going to go through some of their functions. We're going to talk about placement, T4's, everything necessity, and then we're going to go over a lot of advanced testing. You guys will see that I've done some advanced testing on this team. As far as ISOs, and then we're going to talk about the ISOs that I finally locked in on, and get your pencils ready because there's a lot of information coming at you right now. So let's start with this team. This team is exceptional. Now, I will tell you there's one problem with this team that some of the others don't have. And it's if you sim with this team on the boss node, there's a chance that Doom will just go off. There's a chance that Doom will go off. And so that resulted in a sim loss because there's just no advanced targeting options like you do have with the Darkhold, where they can prevent Doom from taking that action because of the way they target controllers, etc., etc., etc. So that's one thing about this is I would still manually play the boss node, but I've got no problems doing it because this team is just a lot of fun. And that's not something we hear a lot, right? Is because especially with arena and metas and like mirror matches, you don't get as much fun out of it like you do as some of the raid teams. And so that's the thing about this. So we're going to start and talk about some of the T4s. Now, I'm going to have extras done, but I'm going to talk about my recommended T4s. Then we'll go back and revisit the order later on with a special guide that'll come out a little bit later on. We're going to start with this. You do not need his Unibeam or his basic. Unibeam is helpful at higher stars. Remember that basically the 100% damage, the higher the target, he can hit for 3 million plus on defense down targets. So just be aware that that is a massive amount of damage, but it really isn't effective as far as overall damage boost. So we're going to talk about this now. I've had the basic done for a while, but his passive and his passive and his special, and now that Viv's here, I'm going to say, or his ult and his special are all important because you want to get that extra energy over to Viv over time. Again, this is on a 4/4 cooldown, so it's going to help Viv. The more times Viv can use some of her abilities, they are pretty good control elements, and being able to flip debuffs. So getting energy to Viv is important. So having that in there is going to be vital, right? So we're going to move on. And then we're going to talk about Deathlock. Now, Deathlock is another character that's going to have, his refurbished. Now, while his passive is good, it's definitely more valuable at higher red stars and higher star level. The one thing I will tell you is he goes off about 2 or 3 times per round because of the energy generation. So it is a lot of extra damage going into targets. That's super helpful, right? All right, so it's 200 versus that. And again, his special with the offense up for 2 turns, this special is probably in the top 3 of all the T4s on this team. That offense up is going to keep this team doing massive amounts of damage for the entire match. If you guys are probably struggling with some of your ISO choices and you don't have this T4 done, that's 100% why. This is one of the top 3 T4s on the team. And this basic is nice to have because when he does run out of energy, he does have the ability to generate energy for random allies here. So he is definitely a high T4. So we're gonna talk about all of these for Hulkbuster. Now, Hulkbuster is a phenomenal character. He has a ton of health, a ton of abilities. We're gonna talk about what his ISO attack does because we're gonna establish that because it's a little more confusing than some of others that you might see in this game. And then we're going to go through all of this. So just to be very clear, this passive is massive in the amount of health that you're giving to your allies. That 15% bonus health is not something that you should ever look away from. It is actually the reason why we were waiting for this character, is they were definitely more vulnerable without that health. Now, the Buster Barrage, again, because this is bonus barrier, it does help if they're taking a lot of damage, which is a big deal. And then the Piston Slam was probably not as necessary because he might already be capped. When we did this before, he pretty much had this cap, but it's a lot of bonus damage, so something to consider. And then the basic here, because it's a striker, is not necessary, but it's helpful. So realistically, we did his passive and his ult, just because of the bonus barrier, to make sure that you're enduring some of the early attacks from some of the opponents, like that do massive amounts of damage on early turns. So realistically, these guys have more than 1 million health because of the barrier being generated by these characters. Okay. Last piece of the puzzle is Viv. Now, Viv, you're going to see, I do believe that her passive, the armor, this is actually one of the teams that actually is getting a much bigger benefit from armor. And it's funny because, you know, they aren't wearing armor for the most part. And so the solar strafe here, the flip all negative effects, there have been multiple occasions where this has been super helpful. And so I just want you to be aware that, you know, it definitely, like, you know, flipping things like stun, etc. are important. There are definitely targets. I haven't done her special. I do not think it's important, even though it is a little bit more damage on a single target. And then her basic, specifically because of the fact that it's to gain the assist. So when she does run out of energy, she's going to have the extra assist from vision, will apply offense down and do amazing amounts of damage. So overall, I think you can do just her passive and her ult, and then do her basic as a luxury. But I definitely recommend that before I do her special. Now we're going to go into the ISOs. Now we've done a ton of testing on it, and what I'm going to tell you is just a design philosophy that I want to just address here. The way this team is designed and the way the raids are designed are very similar. And when I'm saying raids, I mean Doom 3.0 plus. As you go up in those raids, the damage the characters do scales higher than their health and resistances. This is something that's a little bit different than previous raids. Their damage scaling is incredible. What that means is if you have the ability to kill them before they take 1 or 2 turns, then it's more important than some of the defensive actions you can take. And that's why we're going to go and revisit some of these ISOs, okay? So even Iron Man, I was trying to make a case for him as a striker because of the defense down. But realistically, all of that AoE damage going into 10%, always available, was just amazing amounts of crits. You're talking 750k, 450k crits, and you know, at 3.4, the average health I want to say is 1.2 million. So you're literally not giving them a chance through a rotation to take more than one initial turn, if that. Most of the teams in nodes 1 and 2 at 3.4 at this power level were not taking turns. And that was important because when we did the Viv Vision as a striker, we wanted to establish that with these ISOs, did striker have any impact? And the answer was no. As you can see here, I actually have her as a striker in here. And, you know, we're going to talk about, like, if you have a smaller team, being able to deflect the lowest health. Well, realistically, you may not always have the opportunity to hit a target that's vulnerable because the team just kills so efficiently. So you may not even get the benefit from a striker attack. And that is literally why we took that quickly off the board and said, let's just give her the opportunity to do more damage. And more damage meant, well, there's less turns being had by all characters on the board. So we're going to talk about the reason why this is a striker for Hulkbuster is a little bit different. Now, if nobody's broken this down for you, Hulkbuster is a very, very unique kit. Okay? Hulkbuster is a very, very unique kit. This right here as a striker attack occurs just like it does as a basic. Have it open here. Okay, so with his striker attack, if he has more than 25% barrier, he gains defense up, and he gives himself the additional deflect. This is huge for a tank. He may very well be one of the most valuable natural tanks in the game. With everything he does from offense down, the deflects, and the barrier, he is probably very unique in his ability to just take damage and keep on ripping across the board. Other thing that I want you guys to understand is he is exceptional when it comes to damage. Realistically, Hulkbuster is no joke when it comes to his damage potential too. And that's something that we haven't seen a lot since Cole Obsidian. He is doing amazing amounts of damage from a perspective of of potential on the team too. So especially because a lot of his attacks are AoEs. So very, very important to think about it. So I like these. These have been tested by multiple individuals that I trust. There is a case for some different ones, potentially for the Scourge, that they're going to be a part of for Death. That'll remain to be seen, but I think you're going to like these a lot better as you're pushing through the raids. And by the way, if you already have Striker on Viv and you're enjoying it, you may not be wrong. Again, these are just what I'm leaning towards. They've given me the best results as far as overall damage. And again, just making these choices, at least with the power of my team, I haven't gotten the chance for the Striker. So thanks to Tana, guys. Tana actually did something a little bit unique here. He broke down because the passives were reported not working correctly. So Tana went in and just reminded us of an old rule. And we're going to look at positioning for this team. Now, positioning is something that's absolutely vital for this team. And we're going to scroll down to this team over here. And you're going to see that I have the positioning a little bit different than you guys might have seen. And we're going to talk about this from a perspective of energy generation, power, and turn order. So realistically, Hulkbuster can change his turn order depending on the enemy's turn. As these characters get hit, he does gain speed bar, so he could change his turn order relatively quickly depending on the node. However, for most cases, you're going to have Deathlock go first. Deathlock's going to go first, apply offense up for 2 turns to all enemies, and then give adjacent targets the energy, right? So then he'll be 1 energy away from his ult and 0 out of 5 away from his special. We need to get that special up, ideally by the time he takes his 3rd turn. And so this is why we have these positioning, because you want to get that offense up back as quickly as possible to maximize the damage potential. And that's the big reason why the 2 characters here that give it to all and adjacent are the ones feeding him the most. And the thing about this is, while Hulkbuster and Viv have high potential and high damage, the thing about this is they're mostly defensive capabilities on that, which is why they're on the wings. But even more importantly than that, the reason why Hulkbuster is out here on the right wing and Viv is on the left wing is because of the way that the order of operations works in case of their passive. If Hulkbuster drops below 50%, Viv will apply the remove the taunt, stealth him, and you won't get the offense down. It actually slows the offense down if it's in any other order than what you see here, like if Viv is swapped position on the right side of Hulkbuster. So I want you guys to make it aware of that. You actually lose the effect of one of the passives, which can be important, especially if there are, punching up in some degree. So watch Tana's video. He does a much better example. He shows you this is the right positioning. I don't know if it's clear for some people who watch the video, but he definitely describes what's happening wrong. And so this is the right positioning based on his video. So I hope you guys got that from this. Just because of the way the passives occur in order from right to left. Remember that in case you're concerned about that going forward. So overall impressions, guys, I'm going to say this, and I think I want to just, one more time, I want to reiterate this. This team is fun to play. And the most important part about this is I don't think I would recommend simming the boss node. All right, I said that earlier, that Doom has a chance to use his ultimate and potentially annihilate this team. And it was a lot closer than we thought. Doom was on the edge of death anyway. So it looks like these guys almost recovered. But I think it was Doom and Ultron on the last node that spelled their ultimate demise, despite the fact that they are such a high-powered team. That being said, it's mostly because you just can't control who's getting ability blocked on the team. There's no target preference, and we don't really want that from an AI. So I think just playing them in the boss node is acceptable for now. I do know that they sim the first 2 nodes relatively easily. Anyway, I do things so you don't have to. I've gone pretty crazy on this. I pulled a bunch of 7 red stars. But I'm going to be honest with you guys. If I'm going to go through one more last thing here for you, we're going to go through red star priority. And I think Deathlock has a higher priority than Hulkbuster. Hulkbuster surprisingly was working at 5 red, 5 star. So we're gonna move Hulkbuster on down the line from red stars. While I think it's important, I do think that the damage potential for Vision and Iron Man potentially exceed the power from Hulkbuster from the red stars. That being said, Vision on her own is a decent character, but she is probably a little bit lower because of her base stats. So overall damage on this team has to be high to prevent the enemy from taking a turn. So again, this is something that we're seeing a lot in the thematically from teams the swanning with the offense up on web warriors, etc., and help us get through those nodes a lot more efficiently. And again, hope you guys have fun playing this team, as much fun as I do. I did say they're like the Symbiotes 2.0 from a fun factor. They don't get the speed up, but boy, are they wrecking raids in a really fun way. See you soon.